Hi, I'm Mike Leone of Establish the Run. The other week I brought you the top 5 busts in the first 5 rounds. Today I'm going to bring you the top 5 breakout players in the first 5 rounds. Now generally players with an ADP in the first 5 rounds are being drafted at their peak value. They don't have a lot of room to grow. The players that we're going to focus on today actually do have a good amount of upside beyond their current ADP, and there's reasons for their growth potential. We'll dive right into it with Antonio Gibson, number 1 overall. This is a player where he has one of the simplest upside cases I've ever seen. Basically, if he's the 2-down back he was last year, fine. He's break-even pick at the 2-3 turn. But if he can up that receiving production, he's automatically going to be a top 5 back, someone that we're taking very, very early in next year's draft. If you look at what Gibson did in college, it was nothing like what he did at the pro game. He was a very good pass catcher. He got 38 balls compared to just 33 carries in college. So he was used more as a receiver than he was as a rusher, and he was very explosive. On those combined 71 touches, he actually scored 12 touchdowns, which is remarkable, averaging 19.3 yards per catch and 11.2 yards per carry. Fast forward to his rookie year in the NFL, and Gibson did what we were worried he might not be able to do, which was carry the rock in a heavy 2-down role. He had 170 carries. He managed to average 4.7 yards per carry, but the team chose to use J.D. McKissic as the primary receiving down back and on third downs. As a result, Gibson caught 36 balls compared to McKissic's 80 balls. If that flips this year and we see more of a 3-down role for Antonio Gibson and he's catching 60 to 80 balls while J.D. McKissic snaps come down, this ceiling is absolutely massive, and he's going to be a round 1 pick in 2022. Next on the list is another sophomore running back, and it's DeAndre Swift, whose ADP has taken a big hit recently. People are rightfully worried about a Lions offense that isn't going to be very good. They're worried about the presence of Jamal Williams, but I think this is one of the cases where we're missing the forest for the trees, so to speak. And with DeAndre Swift, he came into the 2020 draft class as really one of the top running back prospects, perhaps number 2 behind Jonathan Taylor. He was very explosive in college. He ran a 4.48 at the combine at a pretty good weight, has a strong BMI, can carry the rock between the tackles, also a very good receiver out of the backfield, and that paid immediate dividends at the NFL level. We did see the Lions give him the ball at the goal line towards the end of the season. He caught 46 balls in a part-time role without barely breaking a sweat there, and averaged 4.6 yards per carry. So we saw some of that explosiveness out of Swift, and he's the type of player, because he can get those goal line carries, because he's explosive, because he can catch the football, most importantly, he doesn't need to be your 3-down 300 touch back. So that's why I'm not too worried about the presence of Jamal Williams. This is a case where we're going to bet on talent. If he was on almost any other team, I think we'd be seeing DeAndre Swift easily going somewhere in the 2nd round, but now he's starting to slip mid to late 3. He's one of the few running backs after the top 2 rounds that I'm willing to consider over a receiver in the so-called running back dead zone in rounds 3 through 6. Okay, enough running backs. Let's turn our attention to wide receivers. I'm going to cheat a little bit and group a pair of teammates together for the next 2 breakout candidates. And we'll start with the Dallas Cowboys, and Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb at the 3-4 turn right now are receivers that I could see going in the 2nd round next year. They were lighting the world on fire offensively, the Dallas Cowboys, last season before Dak Prescott suffered that gruesome ankle injury. If Dak is back and healthy, I honestly just expect more of the same. I don't think the defense will be quite so bad, so maybe we'll get less frantic games than we had with Dak at the beginning of last season. But keep in mind, Dak had a career best 8.4 yards per attempt, 68% completion percentage, and he was leading the league in net yards per attempt before he went down with injury. The O-line is going to be better this year. And honestly, the target share wasn't even that condensed for Dallas. Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, even Michael Gallup, they combined for less than 60% of the team's targets. I could see that north of 60% this year. Amari Cooper, in his first 4 games, the 4 fully healthy games for Dak, he saw targets of 14, 9, 12, and 16. I think people are really underrating Cooper's ceiling. And with Lamb, it's a year 2 player who came in as the 2020 top wide receiver prospect. According to playerprofiler.com, he had a 77th percentile college dominator rating, an 80th percentile breakout age, and a 97th percentile college yards per reception. So I think with how fast paced this offense is, how efficient Dak Prescott is, there's enough volume and enough efficiency here for both Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb to pay off their ADPs. And I wouldn't be surprised if one of them paid off in an absolutely massive way. So we're going to shift from the Dallas Cowboys to the Cowboys North, and that's the Cincinnati Bengals. And I call them the Cowboys North because I wrote an article for EstablishedRun.com comparing these two offenses and looking at the Cincinnati Bengals as a good stack this season in fantasy. And like Dallas Cowboys, they run a lot of plays. In fact, with Joe Burrow healthy last year, the Cincinnati Bengals ran an above league average amount of plays in every single one of their games. So they had a couple weird outlier games where it was higher than we'd expect, but even adjusting for that, they were always above the league average. And then layering on top of that, they had a positive pass rate over expectation when Burrow was at the helm. So even after adjusting for game script, they passed more than we would expect. And now that game script's likely going to be negative. You know, they don't have a very high Vegas win total. So a team that's going to run a lot of plays, call plays aggressively, and be forced to pass due to game script is going to have volume. And like the Dallas Cowboys, that volume is feeding into talent. We have Joe Burrow, who was the clear #1 pick in the 2020 draft, one of the best college passing seasons of all time. And then you've got Jamar Chase, who's arguably the best wide receiver prospect since Amari Cooper. That is very high praise. You have T. Higgins, who was a boomer bust prospect, coming into his rookie year last season, and he broke out. We saw exactly what we wanted to see out of T. Higgins. So much like Cooper and Lamb for Dallas, I think Higgins and Chase at the 4-5 turn can both pay off their ADP, while one of them we could see being drafted as early as round 2 next year. And I think Chase is the most likely candidate, just given his absurdly strong prospect profile. Okay, the final breakout player in the first 5 rounds for me is DJ Moore. At 24 years old, entering his 4th season, he already has back-to-back seasons where he was just under 1,200 yards receiving. We don't see that out of players in their young 20s that often. It's extremely impressive, and it's also impressive that he's done it under 2 different quarterbacks in 2 different ways. 2 years ago, he was a lower ADOT type receiver, racked up a massive catch rate, and got to nearly 1,200 yards. Last season, the catch rate dropped because he was being used much more down the field, but he had success. He made up for the lower catch rate with a much higher yards per catch, and again winds up at just under 1,200 yards. So the fact that he can do it in both ways, as a yak guy, a guy who can eat up the defenses on slants, but also a guy that has proven that he can get open and succeed down the field, is really important for his floor ceiling combination. Now you bring in a quarterback that struggled mightily last year in Sam Darnold, but it's tough for Darnold to be much of a downgrade to what Teddy Bridgewater offered. And there's a little bit of uncertainty there. And with that uncertainty means there's more upside for Darnold feeding DJ Moore. So I'm excited about that. I'm also think that Moore has really run pretty bad in terms of touchdowns. He just scored 8 touchdowns on 2,400-ish yards receiving the past 2 seasons. So look for DJ Moore's TD rate to improve and potentially untapped ceiling with a quarterback change here. I love DJ Moore in the 4th round of drafts. So there you have it, my top 5 breakout players for 2021. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up and leave a comment with who you think has breakout potential in 2021 in the first 5 rounds. I'll be back with another video in a week or 2 looking at breakout players outside of the top 5 rounds. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube page and check us out at EstablishedRun.com.